Good. I want to turn to the mayor.
I don't know if I'm missing something, but Giuliani sounds like in this, he doesn't know what scrutiny is. It wasn't Pisco. Somebody emo is. Like, he doesn't know what, like, a rational basis review or intermediate scrutiny is. He sounds like he doesn't know at all what that means. I don't understand.
Now, what standard of review should I apply and why?
So when you're asking for a standard of review, I think there's only 3, right? You're asking if it's a rational basis review, meaning there's not a fundamental right implicated, there's not some like class violation. Basically, you're saying like, does the state have any reason at all to do this action? If so, the action stands, right? If it's a rational basis review, you're probably always winning if you're the state. Intermediate scrutiny means that the state has a burden to prove that, well, there's a good reason why we're doing this particular law. And you have to overcome some challenge from a citizen because some kind of like class or something is implicated. I think like on maybe like gender stuff, maybe for like intermediate review. And then you've got strict scrutiny review, meaning there's a very high burden that the state has to prove. Well, this is why we have this particular law. There's a very good, compelling reason to do it because some class of people, like a race of people or or like some fundamental right is being violated. So there's a very, very high level of review. Like the state has to make a very compelling argument for that particular thing, right? So this is like
still on the website today. She gives guidance as her role is. She gives it to all counties at the same time, and it's on the website, and it's still on the website today.
All right, good. I want to turn to the merits now. What standard of review should I apply?
When you're talking about standard of review, that's what you're talking about, right? I'm pretty sure this is like, I feel like every lawyer would know this. I feel like every single lawyer would know this. But this, it feels like Giuliani goes on for like 20 minutes here, and I don't know if he knows. This whole argument is crazy. I don't know what court is normally like. I feel confident that I could have presented this case in the bullshit like legal eagle videos that we've watched and in the bullshit legal docs that we've read. I feel like I could have presented this case better to this judge. This is crazy.
What standard of review should I apply in this case?
Our motion to dismiss? Well, I mean, I think the normal one, which is that you have
the normal standard of review? Well, maybe he just means like, oh, like rational basis or whatever, maybe. But
to deem the factual allegations to be correct, and even if they are correct, you have to find that there's no merit, no legal theory on which we can get relief.
Well, so what Giuliani's talking about is he filed a motion to dismiss, and this guy's saying, what standard of review should we use? And he just hears it as like normal speech, like, oh, like how should I review your motion to dismiss? Well, I mean, like, well, it's a motion to dismiss. If there's no like legal merit or whatever, the facts we were asserting are true, like they're not contested, then you dismiss. And
let me ask you, are you arguing then that strict scrutiny should apply here?
So now the judge implies, okay, well then what type of basis then? Because you're saying that if your facts are correct, you dismiss. So is this like a strict scrutiny case? Does the state need to give a compelling reason to have a particular law? Okay, right?
No, the normal scrutiny should apply with.
Okay, hold on. I'm warning you, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what normal scrutiny means. I thought that was usually referred to as rational basis review, but maybe that's like jargon that's used. Again, I would have to talk to a lawyer, like normal review. But I'm pretty sure the lowest level is called rational basis. But I'm not a lawyer, so. But this whole conversation back and forth is.
If we had alleged fraud, yes. No, the normal scrutiny should apply with. If we had alleged fraud, yes. But this is not a fraud case.
But when he says normal scrutiny, he's just talking about like how would you scrutinize the case? He's just using ordinary words. He's not using like the legal terms.
So if that's so, what's this background noise? What is it? Oh. Aaron, check, are you moving around again?
Somebody has some bowling bullshit. Does he mean intermediate scrutiny? No, I don't think he knows what scrutiny means, what the judge is bringing up here. But I don't know how that's possible.
I just want you to remember I'm here. I want to say a couple things at some point.
Oh, we'll get back to you. We haven't forgotten about you. Try not to move around. So if that's the case, why don't Secretary Boockvar's and the counties satisfy the standard review that you're talking about? If it's not strict scrutiny and it's the standard review you're implying, why don't their actions satisfy this?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question you're on.
Well, the answer that Giuliani is supposed to give, and I think he has another lawyer, I think there's a woman that comes in, is there's some fundamental right being implicated, and there's a disproportionate impact from one citizen to the next, and there's not an adequate justification from the state that shows why this should be treated differently, right? Because I'm bringing up at least intermediate scrutiny or strict scrutiny, and that's why you should, I guess, I don't know what they should do then. I mean, I think they're asking to just toss all the fucking votes, which is insane. But at the very least, you should be able to challenge this process or procedure.
This is how I would look at it. I would think that.
But Giuliani has no idea like what's going on here. Are all of his cases argued like this? I thought Giuliani was a good litigator because when he did like the RICO shit and everything. Did he try any of those cases, or did he just go to law school and then like immediately graduate to politics?
It's a standard review of strict scrutiny potential. You're not sure that that's the case. I'm not imposing my.
Maybe I don't understand what you mean by strict.
Well, for strict scrutiny.
What does that mean when he says that? Maybe I don't understand what you mean by strict scrutiny. Wouldn't you know this? I feel like you would know this.
You're not sure that that's the case. I'm not imposing my.
Maybe I don't understand what you mean by strict.
Well, for strict scrutiny to apply, a fundamental right needs to be burdened, as I understand it. So how do the counties or Secretary Boockvar, on behalf of the Commonwealth, burden the plaintiff's right to vote? How do they
because
burden the right to vote?
Based on issuing these opinions that are confusing, ambiguous, in several instances contrary to the law, it's very, very hard to have consistency in the principle. Let's stick to the one we've talked about most often, about whether you can cure a ballot, whether you can supply the information after the fact. She created a great deal of confusion about that and never clarified it, so that she conducted, I guess the language in Bush v. Gore would be, an election without standards, without uniform standards.
Well, I follow that, but how does making it easier for some people to vote burden the plaintiff's ability or right to vote?
Well, it isn't so much making it easier to someone to vote. It's specifically the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, at least in the case of Mr. Henry.
Like he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what he's being asked, right? If you're trying to say that a particular thing needs to be gotten away with, that some rule or procedure or process or whatever is not legal, it's not constitutional, right? The first question you have to ask is, what is the standard of review that you apply? Because if the standard of review is rational basis, then all the state has to say is like, the state could basically say like, when we do it this way, it makes the paperwork easier for us, and it'll survive rational basis review. Like, okay, yeah, whatever, good reason, right? But you have to argue for a higher level of scrutiny, and that's what the judge is asking. He's saying, well, how is this guy's rights burdened in a way that's unfair or disproportionate compared to somebody else's rights, right? But Giuliani this whole case, I don't want you to listen to this whole thing, but there's like 40 minutes of this argumentation is like nonsense. Like every single thing Giuliani is saying here, he just sounds like a lost child that wandered into a courtroom to argue some crazy random shit in front of a judge.
Mr. Henry made a mistake.
So his right to vote was burdened by the Secretary's actions?
His right to vote was denied by the way in which...
If he's used to criminal law, isn't it likely that he hasn't been asked this question since law school? That's fine, but the issue is he said at the beginning, he's not alleging fraud. This isn't a fraud case, so he's not looking for civil liabilities and relief relating to fraud, and he's certainly not prosecuting a fraud case. He's a citizen, he's an injured party, right? He's not a state prosecutor or something, right? So then he must be challenging something on some kind of like procedure. See, he's saying some rule or procedure isn't okay. So I feel like, and somebody like an actual lawyer can step in and say, I feel like the only two ways you could do this, you could say, well, they broke the law. So here's like either a regulation or law they broke, or you're challenging like the constitutionality of the law, in which case we have to apply some level of review, some level of scrutiny to find out if the law is good or bad before we can even answer that question, right? Like you can have businesses or a state can make laws that allow for businesses to exist or whatever. I don't know if you need a law for this, that say that like some places can be female only and some places can be male only, right? There might be gyms, right? But there's like a compelling reason, I believe, for why you can have this sort of discrimination. I don't know if this is ever a matter that's brought before a court or not. Maybe this would be, but I'm sure that if you challenged this on a court, like even if you had intermediate scrutiny for a decision like that, it would probably, you could argue that there's a compelling reason, there's a really good reason why you can have sex segregated gyms. But like if you're going to challenge like a process or procedure, I feel like you should know the arguments about it if you're not arguing a criminal case, because he's not, right? Also, he was only a criminal litigator, and that's all he could argue. Why the fuck is he arguing this then? Why not pay for another litigator to come in and argue on your behalf? Why would you do this yourself?
The Secretary's advice was interpreted in part of the state, and in his part of the state, it was interpreted differently. Pennsylvania conducted an election in which people in different parts of the state had a right to vote under certain circumstances, and other people didn't. So in Pennsylvania, as we allege in the complaint, when someone had a ballot in which he didn't use the secure envelope, that person in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, was allowed to vote. In the case of...
How are Mr. Roberts and Mr. Henry the individual plaintiffs? So how are they actually denied the right to vote? If I understand it, they filled out their ballots incorrectly, and then their individual counties, Lancaster County and Fayette County, didn't count them. But you're not saying that every ballot that isn't counted, for whatever reason, constitutes a denial of the right to vote.
No, but here here, Your Honor, and there was a perfect example from the gentleman from the NAACP. Here, Mr. Henry and Mr. Roberts voted, and their vote ultimately was they did not have the ability to cure that vote. The government, the state actor here, did not give them the ability to cure that vote, whereas other voters were given that opportunity.
There we go. So she's presenting, it's a dumb argument, but at least it's coherent, right? Now there's a right that's been implicated here, the right to vote. The state has granted some people the ability to vote, but she's saying that some people are allowed to and some people aren't, that there's a difference here and there's some violation of right here, and the state needs to provide a very compelling interest. Now, I don't think any of the facts they allege are true, but at the very least, whoever, I don't know, is this Powell? Or I don't know who's arguing with Giuliani here. It's probably a different lawyer, I would imagine, but.
They were, and you'll hear this.
But is that a denial of the right to vote?
Yeah, we would absolutely.
The actions of Lancaster and Fayette counties? Is that a denial of the right to vote?
Yes, because everyone should, every county.
But they're trying to argue that having a different process or procedure for curing a ballot is the same as having a different right to vote. Like some people are allowed to vote and some people aren't. That's a huge leap. That's a huge jump.
Should have had the same procedure.
Either they should have been allowed to cure, or nobody should have been allowed to cure.
But Your Honor, but the issue here is that the procedures were not all the same. So, from Mr. Henry's perspective and Mr. Roberts' perspective, their ability to vote was denied because had they simply lived in a different county, their vote, they would have had the opportunity to cure, and therefore that vote would have been counted. And these two gentlemen, their vote was not counted, so they did not vote. Their vote was denied.
All right, let me move away from strict scrutiny and go instead in another direction, and that is, if I conclude that rational basis review is appropriate, why don't the defendant's actions satisfy this standard? You have a strict scrutiny standard, you've got a rational basis standard. It's a different standard. So why don't the defendant's actions here satisfy that standard?
Well, I mean, how is it rational?
How is it rational?
To have in one state.
He's just speaking common parlance. I don't understand how this is real. I don't know what this video is. He just stepped into a courtroom and he's like hearing words for the first time and he's like, rational basis. Well, like, how is that rational? It's totally illogical, Judge. This is so mindfucky to me. I don't know.
Two vastly different standards.
I don't know. Is the judge aware that this litigator has no idea what the judge is even saying? Oh, Based Egghead, are you the one that emailed me this? Yeah, I listened to this. It was off stream, but I listened. Like, what the fuck is happening in this conversation?
To have in one state two vastly different standards about how you're going to deal with what turns out to be 2.6 million votes, and depending on the location in the state, which is exactly what Bush v. Gore uses as an example of a violation of equal protection. I mean, how could that be possibly rational? Whatever you say about her advice and the advice of others, the result of it was a totally unequal, completely unfair election, in which in one part of the state, if you did what Linda just said, if you made a mistake, you don't get counted. In the other part of the state, if you do make exactly that same mistake, your vote is counted. And forget even now Trump or Biden. In Bush v. Gore, they say you can't have different standards based on location. You can't have.
The citation of that Bush v. Gore is horrible here as well. I wonder if somebody just if there was I don't even want to say a legal intern, because a law student or a legal intern would have done a way better job, unless you're talking a T5 million law school from fucking Indonesia trying to study U.S. law. What is Rudy even trying to explain? Rudy is trying to explain he would to a camera, to the press, that it was unfair and rigged or whatever. There's no legal argument here. It's just stupid. Sorry, somebody linked this. When applying normal scrutiny, Rudy Giuliani's court appearance was a total flop. For Tuesday, Rudy Giuliani had last registered an appearance in the U.S. federal judiciary in 1992. And if you have any legal observers, it showed the former mayor of New York flubbed basic concepts of law and at least one anticipated poor command of the English language. Confessed that he did not know the word opacity, applying the bizarro world definition that it probably means you can see. It means that you can't, U.S. District Judge Matthew Brin corrected. When pressed by the judge on what standard of scrutiny should be applied to Pennsylvania government's action, Giuliani replied, the normal one. Oh, okay, they make fun of him here for it. He acknowledged later in the hearing that he did not know what strict scrutiny meant. After an opening statement rant alleging electoral shenanigans that appeared more fitting for the right-wing airwaves in a federal courtroom. Giuliani took a backflip some hours later and conceded to the judge this is not a fraud case, becoming the second attorney for the Trump campaign to use that precise series of words.
All right. In Pennsylvania, Rudy Giuliani argued the case today. I've heard from more than a few people that he was absolutely brilliant in his arguments today. Wait,
which ones? Wait, he's referring to the Pennsylvania stuff? Hannity said Rudy Giuliani was absolutely brilliant in his arguments today. No shot. November 17th, 2020. November 17th, 2020.
You can't say that somebody has a right to vote under certain circumstances in one place, but then under the same circumstances in another place, they don't have a right to vote. Or in this particular case,
they're not even talking about a right to vote. This is talking about procedure for curing a ballot. It's not even talking about a right to cure a ballot, just a procedure for curing a ballot.
the right to cure an absentee ballot.
But in order, let me like,
I don't think anything rational about that.
let me cut to the chase here. In order
I
to
don't
violate
know what's rational about that.
the Equal Protection Clause, the defendants needed to have done more than simply violate state election law. So why is this constitutional question and not simply a matter more appropriately determined, as I suggested before, in state trial court?
Oh, I understand more now. Okay, so earlier I said, I don't know why this would be I feel like you would challenge this, but now I understand. This is why they're in a federal court. The U.S. District Court, Middle District of Pennsylvania. Now I understand. So they probably either lost other challenges in Georgia or they just didn't make them because they were fucking retarded. But he's in a federal court. And federal courts wouldn't have any jurisdiction over how Georgia runs their shit unless you're implicating some constitutional question. And that's what I guess that was the legal theory they ran with for this, is they were trying to implicate equal protections or something. But then again, if you're running a case like this, I would imagine you have to have a standard of review. Otherwise, what is the burden on the state? What do they have to argue? This is just...
And with appellate review.
But it really isn't a question of whether it so happens they violated state law.
This constitutional question and not simply a matter more appropriately determined, as I suggested before, in state trial court and with appellate review.
But it really isn't a question of whether it so happens they violated
It's not a question of what? Constitutionality? Then why the fuck are you in front of a federal court? Why did you... This is a state issue. Why did you come to a federal court for this, Rudy?
state law.
Wait, there's an illegal eagle video in this exact case. Oh, shit. I wonder if we watched parts of this before, but I might not have understood it because I didn't have as much...
But that isn't we're not charging them with violating state law. It could have been some other
If they're not violating state law... Oh, that's why they don't have a state case.
way in which they did.
So they're not alleging fraud, and they're not alleging that they violated a law. They're fighting the constitutionality of the regulations, of the rules and regulations.
But that isn't we're not charging them with violating state law. It could have been some other way in which they did it. What they did was they set up a system where you have two different, fundamentally different sets of rights in one part of the state as opposed to another. Again, in one part of the state, if you make a mistake, it gets fixed. In the other part of the state, if you make a mistake, you don't get to vote. It doesn't even matter if it's Biden or Trump, Republican or Democrat. The fact that you have two disparate standards in different parts of the state means that they have set up a standardless election, an election in which the standards are not uniform about something very, very important.
I think somebody else prepared this case for him. That's what happened. Because now what he's talking about, they have two different standards. He's implicating that there's a different standard for some important right that demands intermediate or strict scrutiny, but he doesn't. Somebody gave him the notes for this, and he's just like, oh, I'll go in and read this down, and I'll improv it for the judge. Because whoever prepared the case I think they have the correct legal theory or the way that they would attack it. But Giuliani doesn't know. Giuliani must not have been involved in the preparation for this case at all. That must be what happened.
Important. How are you going to deal with an absentee ballot, particularly in an era in which that's going to become a much more significant part of the vote? If anything,
Imagine these are your hero lawyers that you've chosen. These are Trump's. Keep in mind, Trump. These were the lawyers that he chose over his White House counsel, over the Office of Legal Counsel, over his whole DOJ. This is who he decided to roll with.
The uniformity of those standards, the scrutiny applied to it, should have been greater, since it now became a much more meaningful part of how you're going to decide the election.
In fact, I have some questions for the defendants. I'm going to look to you, Mr. You want to
respond to these, or am I going to get the same ones? I just want to...
No, you get different questions.
I'll be short.
Let's go ahead.
First, on your first question of strict scrutiny, there is no strict scrutiny because I think as the colloquy showed, these two individuals were not denied the right to vote. They vote. It was defective. And what the secretary and what some counties may have done is what you said, Your Honor, which is they try to make it easier to vote. That, in my mind, is the opposite of a burden.
The standard review.
See, this guy is a real lawyer. It's so crazy listening to the bureaucrats. The bureaucrats that people talk about are so horrible and terrible. And then I listen to these outsiders, these anti-establishment retards, and they don't even have any idea how to navigate any of these systems. And then I listen to them go up against like the actual establishment people that have experience in these fields and are educated and know what they're doing. And it's like fucking night and day. Like there's such a difference in.
As the colloquy showed, these two individuals were not denied the right to vote. They vote. It was defective. And what the secretary and what some counties may have done is what you said, Your Honor, which is they try to make it easier to vote. That, in my mind, is the opposite of a burden.
The standard review instead is the
rational basis, Judge, because, and then what happens is, since there is no vote.
So he's arguing it's rational basis, right? There's nothing big is being implicated here. Like, there's no undue burden. There's no fundamental right that's being violated. Like, why would there be anything beyond rational basis review for this? Which probably makes sense, of course. Because they're not talking about a different right to vote. They're just talking about a right to cure a ballot. Also, I don't even think there were different procedures.
The standard review instead is the
rational basis, Judge, because, and then what happens is, since there is no vote denial in this case, there just isn't, it's dilution. Rational basis, Bognet forecloses it. So that's one. Second, Mr. Giuliani keeps referring to standards. And in fact, there's election law, and the Secretary issues uniform standards. What Bush v. Gore talked about in standards is the Florida Supreme Court actually told different counties when they were in the middle of recounts to stop at different points.
And this guy, notice how this guy actually does homework and research, and he knows the underlying cases that are being cited here, which is good, right? So now when Giuliani brings up a case, probably, I imagine you have to submit, what does need to come to court first? There's probably... Would you know? You must know something, right? Or he's just familiar with it. You must have some idea of what they're going to argue in oral arguments. I would imagine there's got to be briefs or something, pretrial or something. Maybe it's in the maybe you would include this in the complaint, maybe.
So the standard there was they weren't counting all the votes. What I showed you this afternoon in my PowerPoint presentation, Judge, was all the cases that say you can have some differences among counties without being able to establish an equal protection clause. Thank you.
Well, let me. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Donovan. Okay. I'm looking at you, Mr. Aaron. I think.
Yeah. So the defense here brings up who I don't know, the defense for the state of Georgia or for the elections commissions of Georgia says that, like, yeah, you probably have different standards here for curing a ballot. That doesn't implicate the equal protections clause from the 14th Amendment. What are we talking about here? Right?
Establish an equal protection clause. Thank you.
Well, let me. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Donovan. Okay. I'm looking at you, Mr. Aaron. I think wants to speak. I'm going to let him do that. And
to be fair to these lawyers, they had to find a legal justification for why the elections were stolen when it didn't actually happen. It's like ordering generals to conquer Atlantis. Obviously, it'd be goofy if they tried. Yeah, but I mean, like, you can try it and still do it coherently. Giuliani just sounds incoherent. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I don't even want to say, like, oh, he sounds like a fucking law student. He just sounds like a person that doesn't know any law, and he's just kind of like here arguing as a layman. That's what it sounds like.
Welcome to answer some of these questions, as well as are any of the other attorneys present. Care to defer to them. So first question is this. Mr. Giuliani's noted that the Bognet decision's interpretation of standing was based on a future inquiry. Why is that case not distinguishable here, where the alleged injury happened in the past? Understand my question?
I do. If I may, Judge, it is for the same reasons Judge Ranjan, that they're together. The reason why is because it isn't the temporal aspect that is the problem there. The issue goes back to, is it vote dilution? And is it a specific particularized harm? That was the point about drop boxes in Judge Ranjan or in Bognet. It's not the timing, Judge. The question is there a general harm that's done to all voters? And when it is, an individual doesn't have standing to assert an equal protection clause. They might have state law remedies, but that's what those cases stand for, Judge.
But thank you. Next question is, why doesn't the Trump campaign have standing?
He's talking about, like, who has standing to pursue a particular case. If there's not a particularized harm, but there's a general harm to a population, then that means that the individual wouldn't have standing to bring a case in federal court, but he might have standing to bring the case in state court. So this guy knows, like...
For a couple reasons.
Just sum it up for me again.
Okay, hold on. One more minute of this. I'm sorry. Giuliani is wild.
Yeah, sure. So first, Judge, there's no such thing as derivative voting or derivative. I think they called it derivative. That doesn't exist. Number one, they have to have their own standing. And the problem is they don't have any competitive standing because they, at least as alleged, and that's what we're dealing with, is the First Amendment complaint. And they also have no standing because, again, I go back to Bognet, is they can't actually point to anything that has causation or redressability or the different reasons in your voter alliance. I won't go through those different doctrines, but that's why, Judge.
Your Honor, if I could respond.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, on dilution or denial of the right to vote, the fact is the vote wasn't counted, Your Honor. I mean, I can't see what the difference is if I'm not allowed to go into the voting booth and kept out, or I go in the voting booth and they cancel my...
Like, what do you talk, like, refer to a particular rule, refer to a regulation, refer to a process or procedure? What in the fuck are you talking? He sounds like he's talking on TV, right? He sounds like he's just talking on TV. What do you, like, I don't know what judges are like. I have no idea. But I feel like if this was a TV show, I feel like the judge would be chastising the litigant for, like, what do you know what the fuck you're doing here today? Like, why are you wasting our time? You sound completely unprepared. You're not making real legal arguments. Like, what is this? What is happening right now?
Is if I'm not allowed to go into the voting booth and kept out, or I go in the voting booth and they cancel my vote. I mean, the fact is, it's the vote wasn't counted. That's a denial of the right to vote, particularly if I lived in another location in the state, I would have been allowed to vote. That vote would have been counted.
Magistrate judges in Georgia. I don't know what you mean by a magistrate judge. This is a district court. This is a federal court. So this is a federal judge.
You can't have, in a presidential election, a nationwide election, you can't have two different standards, two different practices, let's say, in different parts of the state. I do precisely the same thing in one part of the state, and you count my vote. And I do the same thing in another part of the state, and you don't count my vote. And it's almost a distinction without a difference to say, oh, that's dilution rather than denial. The vote didn't get counted. Therefore, the vote was denied.
Thank you. Mr. Donovan, next question. Why isn't this injury, either by the campaign or the individual plaintiffs, redressable?
It's not redressable, Judge, because it comes back to the cases we walked through. That is, the alleged harm that
So redressability is important because if you're suing for something in a civil case, you have to. What is the relief for your injury? What is the other party going to give you? If you don't have a way for them to redress it, well, then what are you just here to shout at people? Like, what's the point?
it's not redressable, Judge, because it comes back to the cases we walked through. That is, the alleged harm that is here, I think as alleged, is that some individuals were able to go vote provisional, which, by the way, is a standard. It's part of the election code, and any voter can go do it. It's actually required by federal law as well. But when
So he's citing to actual part of like the actual like code, saying that whatever Giuliani is saying, this isn't even true what he's saying. But
that happens, Judge, the harm there is the dilution to everyone. So with Judge Ron John, I know your opinion. So assume someone goes and they vote, and it is wrong. They shouldn't have voted, okay? And what those cases stand for is that is a general harm to the entire statewide tally, not to Mr. Henry, not to Mr. Rogers, not to any campaign. Because, as Boockvar said, then when you look at a campaign are the rules that are out there affecting all candidates, auditor, treasurer, president, and that's what it holds.
Thank you. Can you explain to me why the Pullman abstention applies in this case?
Yes, Judge.
Or should I ask Mr.
Mr. Aronchak can, if he wants to take
Mr. Aronchak, you want to take that one up? It's really your wheel.
Primarily the issue.
Preliminary injunction. Can you do that? A motion to file.
Would be that the amended complaint.
Giuliani talking about this? Hold on.
If you look a couple of rows back at the leader of the end, if you haven't already. And Ms. Kearns, I'm very sorry that happened.
Was that I knew within minutes.
And
Is there a single time does Giuliani explain to like any particular law or regulation in this entire? I didn't listen to this to the.
I don't want to interrupt your flow of argument. Please, with regard to Mr. Giuliani.
10. For all the efforts in your staff, I know you went through the habit.
Our own statements that we've written down that will be subjected to the process of affidavits. And we do have, in addition to these pictures, which I'll submit to the court, should I mark them as an exhibit or not? Or
You're welcome to do so. Mr. Donovan and defense counsel, we had an opportunity to
sure, no, they haven't. I'm going to give it to them now.
have copies of them available.
I haven't, Judge, and I don't believe they're part of the complaint. I have no objection to looking at them, but I'll get to that myself.
Oh, no, they are. Your Honor, in paragraphs 132 to 149, we allege this.
Well,
Okay, so
let's
can I mark it?
go back to that, but if you can supply a set to Mr. Donovan. And what are the paragraphs?
Okay, we're gonna listen to all this. As smoking gun evidence of Giuliani's winning legal strategy, Trump campaign senior legal advisor Jenna Ellis pointed to the judge's restaurant recommendations in the Middle District of Pennsylvania's home city of Williamsport. You media morons are all laughing at Rudy Giuliani, but he appears to have already established a great rapport with the judge who is currently offering recommendations on martini bars for Team Trump in open court. Okay. What is this?
There. And then in the conclusion, the court says defendant's motion to dismiss the First Amendment complaint are granted with prejudice. Leave to amend is denied.
Wait, and it wasn't even a. Wait, are equal protections complaints done under the First Amendment? Or would it be under? I thought it would be under the 14th Amendment. I don't know. I haven't watched. Maybe this is a different complaint.
Now, I want to point that out because there were a lot of people on the internet who pointed to the with prejudice language as being particularly significant. Even really seasoned lawyers got this one screwed up.
I think with prejudice just means that the case can't be brought again in the same manner. Like you would have to have a different case. I don't even know if with new evidence you could bring the same case again, but that's what with prejudice means. You just can't bring it back.
what I will say is that the with prejudice language is really not unusual at all. All that means is that the court thinks that allowing the plaintiff to add additional factual allegations would be futile. There's nothing that they can plausibly do to be able to state an actual valid legal claim. And so that's why the court is denying leave to amend, because there's nothing that they can do. The claims are going to fail no matter what. And with prejudice simply means that the decision is being made on the merits of the case and that there's no leave to amend. So with prejudice is something that you see in basically every civil case in the entire world. It doesn't actually carry any more significance other than this case is now over at the trial court level. They can now appeal the decision, but it's over at the trial court. But it does appear that the Trump campaign is going to appeal this particular decision. Ooh, it's Devin from the future again. And I will tell you, I have seen some stuff. But interestingly, since I am from the future, I can tell you that the Trump campaign did in fact file an appeal. And the Third Circuit Court of Appeals heard the appeal in basically record time and rejected it. They issued their appeal even before I could get this video out, so I had to reshoot this pickup. But the Court of Appeals basically said that the trial court, Judge Brand, got this decision exactly right and rejected the Trump campaign's appeal, stating free, fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. Charges of unfairness are serious, but calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. We have neither here. And the Court of Appeals actually calls out Rudy Giuliani by name, stating, but as lawyer Rudolph Giuliani stressed, the campaign doesn't plead fraud. This is not a fraud case. Instead, it objects that Pennsylvania's Secretary of State and some counties restricted poll watchers and let voters fix technical defects in their mail-in ballots. It offers nothing more. This case is not about whether those claims are true. Rather, the campaign appeals on a very narrow ground, whether the district court abused its discretion in not letting the campaign amend its complaint a second time. It did.
Okay, dumb. Okay. What a wacky dude. So I'm aware of this lady's testimony.
When the president got in the beast, he was under the impression from Mr. Meadows that the off-the-record movement to the Capitol was still possible and likely to happen, but that Bobby had more information. So once the president had gotten into the vehicle with Bobby, he thought that they were going up to the Capitol, and when Bobby had relayed to him, we don't have the assets to do it, it's not secure, we're going back to the West Wing, the president had very strong, a very angry response to that. Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now. To which Bobby responded, sir, we have to go back to the West Wing. The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol. Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
So keep in mind, this is like either single or double hearsay, right? We're getting, this is a story that somebody is telling her about the event that happened. I don't know if any other person closer to the event has testified in the affirmative here. I thought there was one Secret Service person that contradicted the story. I don't remember, but I don't know how true we know this particular story is. Although it's possible she's telling the truth. Maybe this is what was actually told to her by another guy. But remember, the reason why hearsay isn't generally permitted in court, generally depending upon, I think, what things are being recounted, is that you don't have the ability to question the person that's giving the testimony, right? So if I say, I saw John stab Joanne in the neck until she died, right? You can ask me questions about this. Like, hey, like, well, when you saw her, get stabbed, what did he do? What did it look like? How do you know? How are you so sure, right? But if I'm talking to somebody and they say, oh, Steve told me that John stabbed Joanne, you can't really ask Steve any questions through the witness. You're just getting testimony that's coming from another person being communicated to the court. And now is it true? It could be, but we don't have Steve here. He's not under oath, right? Steve, we don't know if he's telling the truth or not, and he's not legally compelled to tell the truth. We can't ask him more questions to figure out, how truthful his statements are. We can't cross-examine him if there's, the prosecution can't ask Steve questions. You have a right to be confronted with your accuser. So this is why hearsay is generally not permitted. Although I think there are types of hearsay that you can permit. Like if I think if Jessica said, Jessica told me that she went to the hospital at like 10 a.m. Like I think basic facts or something. I'd have to look. Hearsay isn't always impermissible, but I think for big claims, I think it's not. I'd have to check for the exceptions. What would they probably are just called like hearsay exceptions or absections. Hearsay exceptions. A statement describing or explaining an event or condition made while or immediately after the declarant perceived it. An excited utterance, a statement relating to a startled event or condition made while the declarant was under the stress of excitement. Is the declarant... Oh, okay. The declarant is the person who's talking to the witness, basically. Statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind or physical condition, but not including a statement of memory or belief to prove the fact remembered or believed. Public records, certificates of marriage, birth, okay. But, okay.
For our children and for our beloved country, and I say this despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. We're going, Democrats are going to ones don't let's see like
in front of the White House at the same time the joint session of Congress is started. We're going to take the audio of that now, and Alex Jones at this moment is leading the march towards the Capitol building where the Senate and Congress are joining together. Let's go to inside the chamber here. The report is...
Be victorious no matter what happens in 15 days.
Wait, hold on. Believe the fraudster telling 1,000 lies per hour or one person stating a single event truthfully. Very tough call. No. This is why you have to remember what hearsay is, okay? The problem with hearsay is that the witness in front of you could be 100% true, 100% factual, not lying, but they could still be reporting false information. You just have to remember the information they're reporting. If Lycan tells me, all right, that Dan killed his dog, and then I go to court, all right, over this case, and somebody says, okay, well, tell me, what did Dan do to Lycan's dog? And I say, well, Lycan told me that Dan killed his dog. Lycan saw it, right? I'm not lying, and I'm reporting true information. But the information that I'm reporting is not that I have firsthand knowledge that Dan killed Lycan's dog. All I know is that Lycan told me that. That's the issue. So I could be truthful. I could be telling the truth under oath. I'm not doing anything wrong. Everything is fine. But that's the issue with hearsay. I don't know if Lycan is telling the truth, and he's not under oath, and he didn't say those statements under oath, right? So who knows, right? That's the issue with hearsay. It's not about like who do we trust or who do we not trust. It's just, these are just limitations of, this is why hearsay is inadmissible, is like big like evidence, like proving things like this. That's all I'm saying. It's not about who you believe or who you don't believe or who's credible or who's not. It could be that everybody involved is a very credible, very has a high moral character or whatever. It's just you can't question the witness in front of you.
1776.
Or you can't question the person making the testimony. Yeah.
1776. 1776. 1776. 1776. 1776. 1776. The Democrats have gone so insane that they're now making the words mother and father illegal in legislative bodies. Have you heard this? Nancy Pelosi has proposed that the words mother and father are illegal. So I got news for Nancy Pelosi. Donald Trump is your daddy. Ladies and gentlemen, Trump said in his speech today, he said the Democrats are out to get us, they want to destroy us, they work for the globalists, they want to bring America down, but we're not going to let them do it. This new system is a military high-tech attack, and we need to understand we're under attack. We need to understand this is 21st century warfare and get on a war footing and not just take this country back, but take the whole world back from the communist Chinese. USA! 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 And so today we march to the Capitol because on this historic January 6, 2021, we have to let our congressmen and women know, and we have to let Mike Pence know, they stole the election, we know they stole it, we're not going to accept it, do the right thing, because there's a million of us here in D.C. telling you to, and you have a constitutional and legal, you have to do it, it's your duty. It's your duty to save this election from being stolen. So they must do it.
President's going to finish in 10 minutes, and he just told the crowd, let's walk down Pennsylvania. Is this Pennsylvania?
This is a live feed from Washington, D.C. Right now, Alex Jones and Owen Schroyer speaking to a large crowd at the same time in the Capitol building. The word is Mike Pence has rejected Trump's call. He has failed to show the courage that Donald Trump was attempting to imbue in him and has begun the counting of the electoral votes. At the same time, there's word that thousands of patriots have broken through the barriers around the Capitol and are now moving towards it to occupy. That's the word from Elijah Schaffer, who's on the ground.
Thousands of patriots. That's the word from Elijah Schaffer, the conservative media commentator that likes to rape women as part of his job. So all of this is being heard loud and clear. Here's a curious thing. I'm probably not going to make you watch this whole thing, but how many times do you think when these guys are speaking into their microphones, when these guys are shouting, how many times do you think these guys say, remember, Trump said peacefully, guys, but Trump said peacefully. Trump said peacefully. Do you think that ever comes up?
And Alex Jones continues to speak to this crowd. Let's go back to Alex Jones.
And the Great Awakening. The Great Reset is triggering the Great Awakening. And the Great Awakening will trigger the Great...
Can Israel not attack anyone for fuck's sake? This shit's going to end bad. I don't think they will because I hope they wouldn't. I'm not sure if Israel would win in Lebanon if they invaded against Hezbollah. Especially after how many months of war fatigue and exhaustion and everything else against Hamas and the Gaza Strip. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Rebellion and the destruction of the New World Order. We all know that our system has been corrupt for a long time. The whole world knows our system has been corrupt for a long time. And they've been waiting for Americans to stand up, and they've been waiting for a leader of America to stand up and do the right thing, expose it, and then bring it to its knees for its ultimate defeat. And that's what we do starting now in the year 2021.
This is it, folks. Live from Washington, D.C. Mike Pence rejects Trump's call to overturn Biden election as patriots move towards the Capitol building. This is it, folks. We'll be back in just a few minutes with it live. All right, welcome back, folks, to the Alex Jones Show. My name's Harrison Smith. News pouring in from many different directions.
Did they start breaking in when they heard that Pence started the counting? I don't know. That'll be the next part of this we go over. I wanted to listen to all these speeches today. The next will probably be the timeline of the riots at the Capitals themselves. Because I'm pretty sure they broke in before Trump's speech finished, I think. What time did first people break into Capitol building Jan 6th? (12:49) Capitol Police responded to reports of unsolicited advice. Don't care about this. I'll have this all written up, so this is simpler. Trump watches TV.
The first breach was at 2:13 p.m.
Was it?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Like you mean them breaking the windows, right?
No, breaking the outside barrier.
Oh, the outside barrier.
That's the first time it, Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. 211 rioter Dominic Pizzola uses a stolen plastic police riot shield. This was when they first broke into the building. That's true, but before that, I'm curious when the first time they breached a barrier, yeah.
The first barrier, okay.
Somebody said outer barrier at 12:53. Rioters overwhelmed police along the outer perimeter west of the Capitol building, pushing aside temporary fencing. Noticeably, Ryan Sanchez. Okay, this is the time. So 12:53 p.m. Trump's speech ended at
1:10.
Trump's speech ended at 1:10?
Yep.
Trump ends his speech by urging... Okay, yep, you're right. I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Are people still blaming Muslims for the riots in the UK right now?
I think probably, because a lot of conservatives keep showing up on my chat like, why aren't you talking about this? And I have no idea.
Do you know what the connection is?
I heard that it was some dude that killed somebody, and because he's brown, people assume that he's Muslim, but apparently he's comes from Sudan, or he's some Christian dude who's not even an immigrant, or I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, he was a Rwandan choir boy,
okay.
who went to church regularly, Christian. He stabbed 3 people, 3 kids in a fucking Taylor Swift themed dance class.
Jesus.
Wounded another 8 or 9. There is one Twitter account shared a fake Muslim name and said it was him.
And
then a
who
bunch
ran
of
that? Whose Twitter account is that?
I'm gonna have to go find it.
Who do you think? I wonder who runs that Twitter account. But go ahead.
What, the Kremlin? I don't know.
Who would assume that? Maybe just the same guys
Yeah.
that work for the IBA. Who knows?
Unbelievable, yeah. Yeah, it's based on nothing. And then because that happened, a bunch of EDL guys, English Defence League, and are related to that kind of movement, from all over the country started bussing in and just started rioting and throwing fucking bricks at the cops and shit like that.
Jesus.
And then the Prime Minister announced that he was going to improve communication between different police forces from different towns so they could coordinate when rioters and far-right people from different parts of the country started coming together to riot, so they could respond more quickly. And they were going to improve like them being able to share information from facial recognition and all that shit. And then people were like, wow, I can't believe you would introduce like things that would change civil liberties and all that for to deal with violence. And like, we've had strategies like this for terrorists and Muslims for the last fucking 20 years. So yeah, it's unbelievable. Like the fact that this happened in the same week as the XY chromosome thing. That this based
You mean
on
when conservatives found out that
nothing.
men can get pregnant and maybe men can have
Yeah,
vaginas at that time? Yeah, Jesus Christ, dude.
Yeah, and it's
Whatever.
it's based on not because it's based on nothing. The Muslim connections. People are still talking about it. People like fucking Sargon and shit are still going on Twitter saying, "If only you'd listened to us about immigration and apparently stop this." Like because the kid, his parents came to the UK because of the Rwandan genocide. That's why they're in the UK, and he's second generation. He's grown up in fucking Wales his whole life, and he's a Christian. It's like it's fucking mental. I don't
Okay,
know,
but he is brown, right?
He is brown, yeah. So now they've decided to completely
too late.
drop the last fucking 25 years of arguments of them saying like, no, it's not Sikhs, it's not Hindus, it's not African Christians, because they're actually massively persecuted. They'll talk about that all the time, but no, now it's just all brown people. Yeah, it's a lot of youth.
Sounds like we need a total shutdown on brown immigration until we can figure out what the hell is going on. Okay.
That just makes me so fucking mad. It's like even like they've showed up in my chat as well, like and yours. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's it. Basically, no connection to Islam whatsoever. These guys are just a bunch of miserable fucking sacks of cum who are ruining my country. And yeah, and you know, like fucking Reform and these parties that win on massive fucking anti-immigration tickets, like the most fucking aggressive ones. Every single place where they win seats, it's like the Muslim population in these constituencies is like 1%.
Yeah.
These are 99% rural, horse fucking, like cousin guzzling fucking places, and then they're the ones who are the most concerned about immigration because they don't learn about immigration from the experience of having immigrants in your community. They learn about it from the internet, from cunts
Yeah,
online.
we'll see if you're still so cocky when you've got to see blonde children in museums. Okay, good luck.
I can't wait. Okay, fucking bye.
Be careful.
Right now, Alex Jones and Owen Schroyer are live outside the Capitol addressing the crowd by Bullhorn. Donald Trump has just finished up his speech. The Senate and the Congress are meeting right now to debate the objections. Breaking from Elijah Schaffer, patriots have stormed the Capitol building ground and are breaching federal barriers and police in the masses. No cell service, but video coming. Non-lethal force in effect. Full unlawful assembly on display. Never seen anything. Non-lethal force in effect. Full unlawful assembly on display. Never seen anything like this. Insane.
Wait.
Full unlawful assembly.
Where is he getting that full unlawful assembly quote from? Does it come from somewhere
the
else?
Capitol building ground and are breaching federal barriers and police in the masses. No cell service, but video coming. Non-lethal force in effect.
He's
Full
reading something
unlawful
else, I guess,
assembly
okay.
on display. Never seen anything like this. Insane. Thousands occupying, and you see the video here of patriots pushing against Capitol City police as they move towards the Capitol building. Estimates upwards of 1 million patriots right now have gathered for this and threaten to overwhelm the defenses of the Capitol building. From the Election Wizard on Twitter, 60 congressmen have just objected to the electoral votes from Arizona. Applause rung out in the halls of Congress.
Like, why is this being reported on like this? Weren't they let in? Fuck, hold on. I have to have this. God damn it. Don't link me any more shit. I don't need, there's like 50 billion videos. It's like, this is so stupid. It's like, it's all on video, right? So obviously we can't disagree. The rewriting on history for this is insane.
Vice President Mike Pence.
Like, where is it on this day when it's happening? Wow. So we're watching all the peaceful protesters being let in by the cops. How is history rewritten on that? Tucker should have lost his citizenship.
The objections breaking from Elijah Schaffer, patriots have stormed the Capitol building ground and are breaching federal barriers and police in the masses. No cell service, but video coming. Non-lethal force in effect. Full unlawful assembly on display. Never seen anything like this. Insane. thousands occupying, and you see the video here of patriots pushing against the Capitol City Police as they move towards the Capitol building. Estimates upwards of 1 million patriots right now have gathered for this Capitol building.
Wait.
Capitol City Police as they move towards the Capitol building. Capitol City Police as they move towards the Capitol building.
Hold on.
Estimates upwards of 1 million patriots. And you see the video here. Never seen anything like lethal force in effect. Full unlawful assembly on display. Never seen anything like this. Insane effect.
Oh.
Full unlawful assembly.
Full unlawful assembly. He does say unlawful. Okay, because I was reading the tweet. So they're even saying right now, like, Jesus.
On display. Never seen it's pushing. Estimates upwards of 1 million patriots right now have gathered for this and threaten to overwhelm the defenses of the Capitol building. From the election wizard on Twitter, 60 congressmen have just objected to the electoral votes from Arizona. Applause rung out in the halls of Congress. Vice President Mike Pence released this statement, essentially abrogating the responsibility of rejecting or accepting the electoral votes. He says during the 130 years since the Electoral Count Act was passed, Congress has, without exception, used these formal procedures to count the electoral votes every 4 years. Given the controversy surrounding this year's election, some approach this year's quadrennial tradition with great expectation and others with dismissive disdain. Some believe, as Vice President, I should be able to accept or reject electoral votes unilaterally. Others believe electoral votes should never be challenged in a joint session of Congress. After careful study of our Constitution, our laws, our history, I believe neither view is correct. And essentially, he says he's going to leave it up to the legislatures, and he himself is not going to exert the unilateral authority to determine which electoral votes should be counted and which should not. While he says, quote, while my role as presiding officer is largely ceremonial, the role of the Congress is much different, and the Electoral Count of 1887 establishes a clear procedure to address election controversies when they arise during the count of the vote of the Arizona's electoral vote to the counting of around the March as it break in. We'll continue to get updates here. Here the police alarms. On the right is the old post for Patriots. Ever since Trump got elected, they're moving now through Freedom Plaza. You can see the just massive stream of humanity. Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, Greg Reese, and others.
Like, think about, we're not even thinking about, oh, fuck, I hate watching this. We're not even thinking about what would the optimal thing be for a president to do. We're way, way, way past that. What would the bare fucking minimum thing be to do? What would the bare minimum thing to be to do, right? The bare minimum would be if you understand that there has already been a riot, that there's already been a penetration of the defenses of the Capitol. Why would you take this whole group of people that you've riled the fuck up and then send them down to the Capitol that's already been breached? It's an insurrection. This is an insurrection. 1 trillion %. It was intentional, fully, the entire fucking time. Trump knew that the Capitol grounds were already breached. He knew that those people were there to circumvent the ECA. That's why he's alluding over and over again to the Constitution. This is constitutional, the state legislature, right? He knows he's breaking the law. He knows that they're going there to try to stop the certification of the vote, right? He knows that they're there to use force. I haven't even gotten into the fact that Trump knew there were weapons and everything there as well. He did know that too. Like, all of this is like, it's so openly, obviously out in the open. Like,
as they march towards the Capitol building, which is already under siege. Ian Miles Chong tweets out, there's so many Trump supporters surrounding the Capitol.
Capitol building already under siege. Why is he saying that? Why did he say that? I thought it was cops just letting them in.
When you see this massive humanity, upwards of, as we say, estimated 1 million people.
Imagine the speeches that we just watched, okay? Imagine watching the speeches that we just watched. All that we just watched. You see all of these quotes about fighting, about the rigged election, about how we're not going to let them steal it. All of this, and then you rewrite history by going, oh, why was there violence? Why was there violence? Because this one guy.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol.
This is the guy that actually incited all of it. This is the guy. Nothing else that we've seen. Not the hours of having everybody tell you your election's stolen, you had a fight like hell, not the weeks of Trump tweets about the election being stolen, about how Pence can overturn it unilaterally, not all the pressure being applied and all the different channels of the vice president, the lawmakers, not all that. No. It was this guy, the old dude with the red hat. This is the guy. He's the one that set it all off. Is there literally any evidence that he was a Fed? No, none. Zero. None has been presented. There is no evidence. Crazy how when you listen to this video, there's not a single person here saying, why are we here? Oh, I don't know. Some guy yesterday was shouting at us at night to tell us to go into the Capitol. No, some dude was telling us that. Notice how the only people in this video recording him are all shouting at him that he's a Fed, like Baked Alaska. Notice that Baked Alaska actually went into the Capitol. What if Ray Epps was identified here as a Fed, okay? If Baked Alaska knew that he was a Fed and he knew that he was giving Fed instructions, why did he go into the Capitol the next day? Why did he do it?
People moving to surround the Capitol. Owen Schroyer and Alex Jones now speaking through the bullhorn to the crowds who followed them.
Traitors in Congress that have stabbed us in the back. You stabbed us in the back one too many times. Cover with truth and justice and non-violent civil disobedience.
He goes, non-violent civil disobedience. All right, thank you, Alex.
This is history happening. We're not giving in to the globalists. We're never surrendering. This is our country. This is our country, not our corrupt politicians' country. They work for us, and it's time they got a friendly reminder who their boss is. The communist Chinese and the globalists and Hollywood don't run this country.
Steve Scalise is now objecting to this. He's got the second article of the Constitution up behind him. Let's go to what he says as we continue to roll B-roll of the conflicts taking place between Trump supporters and police outside of the Capitol. You see mace being sprayed, punches being thrown in both directions as the conflict escalates. This is truly incredible.
I don't understand. Wait, where's the video of them being led into the building? I thought they were let in. I thought they were let in peacefully. Well, why is this happening?
Stuff, folks. The day has just begun. The violence may get out of control, but you see the Capitol Police there, fully suited up in riot gear, ready for whatever occurs. Here's Steve Scalise.
The election, so everybody knew what the rules were. People on both sides knew how to play the rules before the game started, not getting somewhere in the process and saying, well, you don't think it's going to benefit you, so you try to go around the Constitution. That's not how our system works. It's gotten out of hand. And so President Trump has called this out. And President Trump has stood up to it. So many of us have stood up to it. And in fact, over 100 of my colleagues, Madam Speaker, asked the Supreme Court to address this problem just a few weeks ago. And unfortunately, the court chose to punt. They didn't answer one way or the other. They didn't want to get in the middle of this discussion.
The House right now, but here's an update as of less than a minute ago. Hill staffers have been told to evacuate the Madison building. Things are getting tenuous here as Trump supporters and patriots continue to pour towards the Capitol. Alex Jones himself at the head of a massive column of patriots moving now towards the United States Capitol building. We go back now to Steve Scalise, who inside the Capitol building is objecting to counting the votes from Arizona.
Every single Republican voted to reform the process. Every single Democrat voted against it. They don't want to fix this problem. But the Constitution is our guide. And it's time we start following the Constitution. It's time we get back to what our founding father said is the process for selecting electors. That's the legislatures. In public view, not behind closed doors, not smoke-filled rooms, not bullying somebody that might give you a better ruling. Let's get back to rule of law and follow the Constitution, Madam Speaker. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The Congressional House and objecting to the counting of votes. Trump supporters are storming the grounds of the Capitol building and have torn down fences, punches being thrown, mace being sprayed. This is an ongoing situation. Crowds continue to increase in size as they move towards the Capitol. An evacuation order has been issued for the Madison building. Here you see the Trump supporters tearing down the fences as this
Why did they tear down the fences? What about the cops?
Mass of humanity moves towards the Capitol in defiance of the strictures and boundaries and perimeters being set up. This is a historic day, folks. We're seeing things we have never seen in America before, and we'll bring it all to you up to the minute updates here on Infowars.com, band.video. We are just monitoring all different feeds. We have our own feed here. That's Owen Schroyer with the bullhorn leading a massive column to greet the already huge crowds at the Capitol building that are threatening to break in. Evacuation orders being issued.
Like, are these people all Antifa? I thought there was why where are all the video cameras of them saying like, wait, hold on, we know that Trump's people are peaceful. This must be Antifa. This is Antifa. This is a setup. We're not being violent. We're just being let in. Nobody's fighting with anybody. It's just Antifa and the cops are letting us in, and it's a false flag, and there are feds everywhere. Like, where was that? Where was that rhetoric on the day of? Do you know why that rhetoric isn't here right now? Do you know why that rhetoric isn't here? Because they think they're going to win. That's why. That's why they're not saying any of this. Because they think they're going to win. They think they're going to steal the election. They think the coup attempt is going to be successful. And they want to be part of Trump's new little fucking coup administration or whatever when this is over, right? It's not until after it ends, all right, that Light turns to Mikami and says, I don't even know that man. And then he kills himself, okay?
And the congressmen continue to object. This is incredible, folks. Stay with us. This is a historic day, ladies and gentlemen. Incredible things happening. They're storming D.C. Patriots are rushing and surrounding the Capitol. They're tearing down barriers. Police are struggling to maintain the crowd. Mace and punches being thrown back and forth. Two House buildings have been evacuated. The House Cannon building and the House Madison building have both been issued evacuation orders. Pence has said he cannot reject electoral votes outright, but the Congress themselves are objecting right now to the Arizona votes. Videos coming out over Twitter, and we'll bring you those just as soon as we can of the conflict, the combat actually going on with the Capitol Police being pushed back, barriers being torn down, and patriots waving Trump flags, American flags, don't tread on me flags, the Gadsden flag, all moving inexorably towards the Capitol building. Alex Jones and Owen Schroyer at the head of a second column of humanity moving towards the Capitol building, less than a mile away now. There's the evacuation order you see from the United States Capitol Police. Move in a safe manner to the exits. If nearby, your designated assembly area, and check in with your OEC. These are the orders being issued to the members of the House and anybody there in the Capitol building. That's the Madison building and the Cannon building. Both received evacuation orders as a consequence of this massive humanity that continues to blast their way through the flimsy barriers preventing them from getting close to the Capitol. incredible stuff, folks. Here we're seeing videos that are being transmitted to us minute by minute as we receive updates from people on the ground, independent journalists, and just regular people alike. Meanwhile, and here you see them pulling the barriers and the police struggling to pull it back. This is not Black Lives Matter, folks. This is not Antifa. These are
Oh, what a, oh my God. Oof. Oh no.
patriots. And
oof. Before the insurrection, before you lose.
This is not Black Lives Matter, folks. This is not Antifa. These are patriots.
And then after you lose, actually, all of them were feds. I didn't even know the FBI was so big. Okay, I didn't even know I didn't know Enrico. I didn't know there was the Proud Feds. I thought it was the Proud Boys. It's actually the Proud Feds. Okay, I didn't know that every single fucking person here. I didn't know that our departments were so huge.
And perhaps they finally boiled over. You see the air filled with a mist of mace, the stinging gas that the police will be implementing, and that is also being implemented against the police as patriots. Wow, we're receiving blows to the head from billy clubs, attempts to tear down barriers. But once again, folks, this is but a small fraction of the upwards of 1 million people that are now in Washington, D.C., with the vast majority of them just now moving towards the Capitol. We expect this situation to become ever more dire. Here we see, once again, moving past what looks like the Museum of Natural.
Why would he expect it to become more dire? It doesn't make any sense that he would say that, because we all know that Donald Trump just said, you're marching peacefully, right? We all know that, because for him to say that it become more dire doesn't make any sense. Why would it be? It's so crazy to me right now, because I've been so gaslit for 4 years that in order to save my mind, all I have to do is actually just listen to the same guys. I just need to listen to them 4 years ago. What did you think 4 years ago? I don't even need to listen to the real media or New York Times or fucking. I just have to listen to what they were saying. That's it. I just have to listen. What were you saying on that day? This is the October 7th test but it's for conservatives. The January 6th test. What were you tweeting or saying on J6? Were you saying, wow, this is a horrible event that looks like Antifa and BLM? Or were you cheering them on, thinking that your government was going to self-coup and that you were going to have Donald Trump for another 4 years?
History, perhaps the Air and Space Museum, closing in on the Capitol, a column of humanity being led by Alex Jones with his iconic bullhorn and Owen Schroyer next to him. The sheer number of people there makes it almost impossible to get signal out, and that's the only thing really preventing us from getting completely live feeds right now, but we're getting them about as quickly as we can. Fights have broken out between police officers and Trump supporters in front of the Capitol. Right now, Jim Jordan is objecting to to counting the electoral votes from Arizona. Let's go down to Jim Jordan and hear what he has to say.
Traitorous fuck. This is another guy who needs to be...
What if it's 10 states next time? What if it's 15? What if in 2024, 2028?
How are his articles of impeachment against Biden going, by the way?
26 states. What if it's half the states do an end run around the Constitution clearly spells out? We are the final check and balance. The authority rests with us, the United States Congress, the body closest to the American people, right where the founders wanted it. We should do our duty. We should object to and vote for this objection to the Arizona electors. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you. That's Jim Jordan objecting and laying out his reasonings for objection against this Arizona. So they go state by state to count the electors. As of now, only 12 have been counted. I believe that's just from Alaska. So Trump right now has those 12 electors. Biden still at 0, as he would be awarded the Arizona delegates, except there has been an objection, and now there's time for a debate. Adam Schiff now presenting what I'm sure it can be summarized as BS. American nationalists on Twitter asking President Trump to storm the Senate chamber. This day is young, folks, and who knows what will be. To storm the nationalists on Twitter, what I'm sure it can be summarized as BS. American nationalists on Twitter asking President Trump to storm the Senate chamber. This day is young, folks, and who knows what will be, what the future holds for us. Again, Elijah Schaefer reports patriots have stormed the Capitol building, ground, and are breaching federal barriers and police en masse. No cell service, video incoming.